Mr. Lubbers, the former Prime Minister of Holland. He was going to talk to us about the green growth over the financial crisis and create jobs. Please join me to welcome Mr. Lubbers for his speech.
Sorry, you get your coffee or tea a little bit later. Yeah, you have seen the title. I'm asked to say a few words. Green growth to overcome the crisis and to create jobs. To explain this a little bit, but let me start with some preliminary remarks. It was in 1994 that I left office as a Prime Minister. I did the job for 12 years. And before that, I was also in politics. Started as a young Minister of Economic Affairs. So I was 21 years in politics. But I'm not a real politician. I started my life as a businessman. 10 years in business. Okay. Then in 94, when I left, a bit strange because I didn't lost elections. I only fought after 12 years. The risk is that I win elections and then I have to go on again. And it's better for democracy and for myself to put there periodic. So I sat down at my desk, started to read a little bit. And there I found, because you don't read enough as politicians, not real stuff. And there I found, reading books, articles, a new word, what I didn't know at all. It's the word globalization. Globalization in English, globalization in American, even la globalisation, die globalisierung. I thought, this is strange. I didn't know these words exist, is a new word. So I went around, my friend said, the people are wrong using that word. We have always had globalization. You as a Dutchman should know that, sailing the oceans, so there's nothing new. But I thought, if the people need a new word, there must be something new. So I decided to look into that matter. And then I started to give a few speeches on what I thought globalization was and where it did come from. This was a serious mistake, because within a couple of months I was a professor on globalization. Started to teach at the Kennedy School near Boston. And I did it at a university in the Netherlands. It was fun, becoming a professor after being a politician on globalization. I did that for 6-7 years, combining it with other part-time jobs, like the World Wildlife Fund. So I was chair of the World Wildlife Fund. And then one day, Kofi Annan called on me to become High Commissioner for Refugees. I asked my permission to my wife to shift to the refugees. And she said, wait a minute, we have to inform our children and grandchildren. She did. Then she informed me, it's okay. Only your eldest grandchild refuses. She said, Opa has to take care of the pandas, not of the refugees. So you see, it's always a little bit subjective in life. Oh, I went to Geneva those days. Now, I was a little bit of nevertheless in those years, a former politician. There were some specific things which came back in my mind always, and in the mind of other people asking me questions. I spoke already of 1991, the Treaty of Maastricht. I told you the story, you were here, of President Mitterrand. My worries that we would create a single currency without a good governance. But it was the time it happened just simply. in the 90s of last century. So now I listen about what's happening now with the euro, and I might say here in Berlin that, as I said earlier, you have this Frau Merkel. This is special, because then it was East Germany in the old days. Now we have Frau Merkel, and she was called Das Mädchen by Helmut Kohl. You know, Das Mädchen, yeah, it's a good, true expression, because she cleans the house. And now she has to clean up the mess. Helmut Kohl left when he didn't finish the euro. So now she is obliged to do that. But how does that come? And that's a story more of the professor of globalization. I have seen developing in the world what you might call the casino capitalism. This was based on new innovation, part of the globalization, technical innovations, creating new possibilities for economists, people, clever young people, new models of derivatives. I didn't know what derivatives were. I learned it those days. This was part of the new technology, new findings. So you modernize banking and earning money by these new systems. You start to what's called securitize. Then you can sell your packages of assets to others. You discouple the traditional feeling that you have people who give money, creditors and debtors, and that there is a relation between the two. So no. You decouple that, and you can securitize, you can sell it out. And it became quite a business, a very profitable business. The financial centers in Wall Street and London were fueled more and more with these smart young boys and girls, very fast going. So they were an example of modernity. And they brought money, and they had to be stimulated. So they get bonuses, and they could earn a lot. Take a lot of risks as well. And there were other schemes. I told you about the derivatives, who suggested that it was reducing risks. But at the same time, nobody understood it anymore. So it became a bit of a complicated financial system. Financial innovations have led to another financial world. And that seemed very good, something nice. Wealth creating, they said. The bankers were creating wealth. They were not only funding, as the traditional role, the real economy. They suggested they were adding wealth to the wealth by these new technologies, these new systems. And then suddenly, it went down. You know the story, Lehman Brothers and so on. And then it is. And that came then to Europe as well, because that was added to the lack of governance. It was not stable. They didn't know how to handle it. So this is what I wanted to tell you of my life story. This is 1992. You know, I left 1994 as a politician. 1 year before that, we had Rio de Janeiro, the United Conference on Environment and Development. I remember that conference. It was an euphoria, because it was now not any longer the confrontation between communism and capitalism. It was the euphoria, the happiness that it was now market economy all over the world. But there in Rio came a few NGOs and representatives of indigenous people and said there is a risk. But it seems that everybody thinks it's all about the economy. But is this true? There are other values too. Ecology. And they made a plea for a Earth Charter. With the chair of that mission, it was the Undersecretary General Maurice Strong. I was there as a Prime Minister, together with a lady who has exactly the same age as I have, still alive, Gro Harlem Brundtland. And Gro and me said to himself, isn't that wonderful? Because Gro wrote 5 years earlier in a book, Our Common Future, about how to relate environment and development. And with his friends, he penciled down, coined the word sustainability. What does it mean? We have to live in such a way that our children and grandchildren have an opportunity to reach the same levels of living as we have. But what you're doing is a risk that we exhaust the earth, that it will go down. And therefore, she made a plea for sustainability. So two of us were happy. I did a little bit more. After that, I, still Prime Minister of the Netherlands, supported that initiative. And it came to a Earth Charter. You can Google it, what it is. Do it one day. This Earth Charter was the outcome of an endless dialogue of all sorts of NGOs and people all over the world. And in the year 2000, the same year of the Millennium Declaration, there was the result, an Earth Charter. So for me, professor in globalization, I have these two experiences. Experience, how did it go further with Europe? And what happened with Rio? Recently, we had 20 years Rio plus 20. 2000, we had the Earth Charter. I'll tell you a few words more on that. Later on, it was the year 2008. We celebrated 60 years Universal Declaration of Human Rights. You must know the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And then I sat down with two friends and said, let's make a comparison between the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the Earth Charter. Is it all the same, or is there something new? What's the difference? Very quickly. Difference one. The Universal Declaration was the result of decolonization of the world. It was to give the right of all the peoples all over the world to have their own democracy. Sovereign states. The Earth Charter is not about independent declarations of independence. It's a declaration of interdependence. We relate to each other. 60 years later, this dialogue proved that to be the case. This is one. The second, now we speak about the new problems. Exhaustion of nature. So let's go for sustainability. It's the point already mentioned. It's the second. The third, those years we are so involved of having our own sovereignty that we were not much aware of the fact that there are so many different peoples, diversity. Diversity is mentioned these days as a challenge, and it is a reality because people, as Busek said, move around. So we have to live with that. Between the nations, within nations, learn to live with diversity. It was not in the Universal Declaration. Now it's understood as key. The fourth is, those days we thought, if we have sovereign states, democracies all over the world, we have the best of all governance. We really thought that politics could take care on its own with the challenges which you have to face in each generation. And we wrote down, to be efficient, effective in the transition to modernity, there has to be complementary governance. Politics, together with business and civil society. Only when those three work together, you can be effective in change. If politics have to do it on their own, will be a failure. So this was the fourth dimension. And the fifth is a bit strange, of course, because like my friend Busek, I'm raised in a generation that we really thought if we get rid of religions or spirituality, it's good for the common cause. And now we understand it's not true. Maybe we have a better world when there is some space for religion and spirituality. So these are the 5 differences. Okay, this is about the Earth Charter. I said to you a few things about the crisis now. This is on the euro. That is the other crisis, is the green crisis. Still the problem of the ecology. You remember 1991, Rio de Janeiro, but still all over the place. This comes now together, the different crises. The crisis on climate change and the monetary and financial crisis. And now my somewhat challenging thesis is, now we have so much unemployment in Europe. It's better to find ways forward, not only by budget cuts and reorganizing the banks, but try to create new activities, jobs in fact, by green growth. Did I invent this? Not. Not many people are aware that this was written down 1.5 years ago, May 2011, by the OECD. This is the Organization on Economic Cooperation. And they pencil down, if you give a good look to that, to the green growth, it is growth. It is green, but it's also growth. It will create jobs. Still, up till this moment, it's not very much happening, although you have seen good examples here. But in Brussels, they are so busy with the euro crisis, the European crisis, that they didn't find time to give shape and substance to what they said earlier. This is the so-called emission trading system. ETS is the technical name for that. Those people thought those days, and I think they were right, to organize in an objective way, going to a green economy, you have to give a price or a tax or a price to CO2. That's the most objective way. If you do that, you can raise income, of course, but that's not the idea. The idea is that CO2 are burdened, taxed. In the old days, we used to say the polluter pays principle. If you do that, then you can change the economy to a green economy. And the reality of life, there are always, of course, pressure groups who say no, because I have a business, and if it's not happening all over the world, I lose my business. And up till now, they are successful. But it's still a possibility, and formally it's still the way forward in Brussels to do that. And to say simply, of course, this will take time to adapt yourself, but you have to do it. And even in a micro situation, this could be very difficult in the economy as a whole. It will stimulate to all sorts of new investments and jobs. So this is happening now, and I hope it will continue. Therefore, my title, Green Goals to Overcome the Crisis and Create Jobs. I really hope that here the dimension, the normative dimension of sustainable development will meet the rationale of the economy. Is this hopeless? No. In my country, and it's famous for big multinationals, they went to Davos, the economic summit, made a declaration, the largest companies in the world. We really think this is good for our companies. This will create jobs. So it's happening there. And with many small business people, you see the same. So there you see it coming up. Politics are lagging behind. Business is taking the lead. Originally, you thought the public cause is defended by politics, and the business are great people. They cannot assist. But now I know from large and smaller businesses that they're doing it. So I ask them, can you believe in that? How is it that you are thinking so different now as 10, 15 years ago? You know what the answer is? The answer is, we need the brightest young people in our companies to bring them forward. But they became so irritated reading that they were blamed to ruin the world. So they don't want to do that anymore. So we right now in our mission statements, our Unilevers and what have you, we want to go for sustainability. Not because somebody urged us to write that down, because we are convinced this is the way forward. So this is an example of what is written in the Earth Charter. Change to modernity has to be achieved by complementary governance. Not only politics, but business itself. And NGOs, many NGOs. NGOs were long considered as people who are good in saying no, mobilize action to stop something. But now more and more you see NGOs as well as partners in the change. And they can play, of course, an enormous good role. So I think here I gradually end. Let me end with the last words of the Earth Charter itself, because this is an ethical plea. It's of course about peace, it's about sustainability, it's about diversity, but at the very end it formulates and the joyful celebration of life. We Earth Charter people really think the joyful celebration of life itself is something very important. The joyful celebration of life. So that is what I wish to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.